Fan service is a very interesting concept. I feel like fan service is really one of those things you can only truly appreciate when you're younger. I think after a while of watching anime, you probably either get desensitized from fan service or you just end up despising it completely. Me personally, I used to think I hated fan service, but after seeing some shows, I think I'm on the fence. It just depends on how you do it. In my opinion, I feel like there are good and bad ways to use fan service. And I think a lot of the time it's just done as bad example to just have an excuse to draw your characters naked for no reason. One of my go-to shows to use for bad examples of fan service is Fire Force. Yes, Fire Force slander, let's fucking go! I watched half of season 1 before I just ended up dropping it, bro. There were a couple reasons why I dropped Fire Force, but like I think the main one is just because Tamaki is just there purely for fan service. It's one thing for a character to have a lot of fan service, but when you have a whole character and just their whole thing is fan service, bro, nothing that makes Tamaki interesting is in her character, bro. It's in the fan service. Her powers are dog shit. She can turn into a cat or whatever. I don't know what that even entails, but like the fan service makes no sense. Like I swear she could walk and trip and then her skirt gets caught on like a fucking hangrail and then the panties fly off and then the t-shirt just disintegrates into thin air. Oh my goodness, how did I get here? Anytime she will be on screen, it's like a 99% chance there will be fan service. The point where I dropped it, literally the point where I dropped it was when I had enough, but there's literally a point where she gets up, she walks out the room, not even a second later she walks back in the fucking room with nothing on but an apron. How? How is that even possible? And the fan service plays zero part in the characterization of the character or in the story. There is literally no point. It literally happens whenever the author is horny and wants to draw some tits or whatever. I'm sick of this shit, bro. And I think the worst part is that when there actually are important scenes, it gets interrupted for fan service. Like, why? I think like the biggest offender, up to the point where I watched it, right, was when Shinra was fighting one of the guys, right? And this was actually a very important fight because this guy was a villain. He was kidnapping kids and injecting them with like the fire bugs that make him detonate and then turn into fire monsters, right? Very important fight against a very bad guy that needs to be stopped. Tell me why, after every hit the villain takes on Shinra, right, he ends up flying backwards into Tamaki and then some fan service happens. Midway through an important fight, it's like, why are you showing me this? And I don't think having a lot of your show be fan service is like a crazy thing. A show like High School of the Dead, the whole show is basically fan service, which I don't really have a problem with because the show doesn't really take itself seriously, especially because of the dub. That dub is amazing. And the plot is like a generic zombie plot. It's like, and then there's some characters or whatever. The story is absolutely dog shit. The characters are absolutely dog shit, but the fan service and the animation makes up for it. So it keeps you somewhat interested. My issue is when you try and pretend like there's more to this story than just tits. Like it's like halfway through the story, like they try to focus on survival and getting this kid out of here and oh my god, there's zombies and I don't care, I want to see him rest some butts. I don't understand why they're trying to make these characters have important plot points or like story. Like I give a shit. Like really the whole point of the story was to see fan service and I'm not seeing it. I'm not entertained, especially if I wasn't paying attention to the story. I'm not entertained, my guy. But listen, just because a lot of these ways that they use fan service is bad, right, doesn't mean there aren't good ways of using it. I think Chainsaw Man is a very good example of this. I think a lot of the fan service is for the audience. The fan service is Chainsaw Man is for the character. There's a video that explains this much better than I can, but characters like Himeno, right? Himeno uses her sexuality very, very loosely and she uses it as a vice because her life is extremely fucking grim, bro. She has trauma over several of her partners that have ended up dying in devil hunting, and she knows that people that end up as devil hunters don't live long. A character like Makima doesn't care about her own sexuality. She uses it to control and manipulate people into doing whatever she wants. Main example, Denji, who grew up basically without connection, no love, no family, no nothing. So someone like Denji who's vulnerable, she uses her sexuality to take advantage and trick him. I think that's a very good way of doing it if you want to put it in your series. If you want to do it for the audience, something like Prison School, almost all of the humor is based off fan service. The fan service and the raunchiness is like the racism in Rush Hour. Like I usually don't like fan service, but like the shit is just so funny, you just have to let it slide. I think overall, fan service isn't really a negative thing. There are ways you can use it positively and ways you can use it negatively. It all depends on the series and how you do it. I think overall it's a net negative because if you do try and do it, usually it just goes wrong and ends up being some weird shit. But at the end of the day, that's just my opinion, bro.